Assalamualaikum everyone and a very good morning. Today we are going to start chapter number 7, which is titled as Consumer Learning. So learning is basically an application of prior knowledge and past experiences to a present situation or circumstances. Now in this chapter we have a long list of learning objectives, but today we are basically going to cover the first two objectives of this chapter. Number one is basically we are going to understand the elements of learning from the point of view of consumer behavior. And then we look into different behavioral theories regarding learning, and along with that, the role of stimulus, generalization, and discrimination in developing and branding new products. Now, let's look into them one by one. So, first of all, before we start this chapter and before we define this, what is consumer learning, or we look into this different elements of learning, there is a little case which is given at the start of the chapter, and this basically case talks about a company which is making Galaxy Note, and this Galaxy Note is a market leader in smartphone industry. So they have introduced a new gear along with Galaxy Smart 3, which is a wristband device, and it helps consumer to organize and micromanage every aspect of their life. So even when consumers they are not close by the phone, they're still wearing that device, and that helps them to locate the phone and organize so many things in their life. So they are basically trying to market this product as a lifestyle product, and it is kind of a status symbol. So in this scenario, they ask first question, which is like, what makes teaching and learning effective? So if you ponder upon this question, I think most of the time that we are very responsive are those classes in which we come across knowledgeable teachers, and that is the first most thing that makes people responsive, is that the knowledge that the teacher or the facilitator carries. Second, consumers are more likely to learn from the message that are fun and attention, just as they respond better to a knowledgeable teacher. So in this scenario, the Galaxy Note 3 plus Gear, they came up with an advertisements which were quite fun and attractive and were appealable for the consumer. The third thing that is very important is the repetition. So the third element of learning is repetition, which in advertising means restating the campaign's key message in many forms across different media. So the Galaxy Note 3 Plus Gear keep on consistently sending their messages, their communication messages via different medium to the consumers, which were consistent. And then the final element is basically the reinforcement, which is the final element of learning, involves rewarding those who try the new product. So the product experience itself serves as a reinforcement agent. If it is changing your lifestyle, it is contributing a lot in organizing and micromanaging your life. What a blissful product it is. So the product experience, it basically reinforces the uh, learning. And then it's not just the product experience, the people around you, when they appreciate the product, it is automatically reinforced. Now let's look into what is consumer learning. So learning is a process that involves in changes as consumers acquire knowledge from experience, observation, and interactions with other, and newly acquired knowledge affects future behavior. So it's basically something which is very dynamic, and you are not stagnant when you are learning. Like you are at one point, you are at one position, and then after like 5 minutes, maybe you have learned a new thing. So it's a continuous process. So it's saying it's that evolves and changes as the consumer acquire knowledge. So as people, they keep on acquiring the knowledge from their experience by using products, by being getting exposed to different things, and their observation and interaction with others. And newly acquired knowledge affects future behavior. So whatever we are learning right now will definitely affect our behavior in the future. Probably if someone asks you about what is learning, now you would be better able to tell them what learning is. It's because like just 2 or 3 minutes back I've explained you what consumer learning is. So when we are talking about learning, it ranges from simple and often reflexive responses to marketing stimuli. For example, if you come across an advertisement, some packaging, product color, and promotional messages, so your basically response could be very simple and reflexive. It's like just what you have seen, and you've started responding to it. Any marketing stimuli, either it's the product, price, place, or any kind of promotion, packaging, product colors, promotional messages, and then to learning abstract concept. So simple and reflexive, and then learning abstract concepts and making decisions. So it's about taking complex decision as well as about purchasing complex and expensive products. So it could be a simple response to any product or service, or any product color, promotional message, or any deal, sales promotion, or it could be uh, learning abstract concepts and making decisions about complex purchase decisions and expensive products. Now, not all learning is deliberately sought, and it is very true. At times we are learning intentionally, and at times we are learning incidentally. Something happens, any accident, or without much effort. Probably we are not looking for that thing, but during the course of our journey, we learn that thing by accident or through any incident that happens. So, though much learning is intentional, that is, it is acquired as a result of a search for information. Many a times when we just plan that we have to buy something, like you want to buy a smartwatch, what happens then? You probably log onto the online websites, and you start browsing different kind of these smartwatches, and then what happens? You start gaining learning information about different brands, the product types, the product versions, the features of different smartwatches. So it's basically, at times it is intentional because you're looking for it, so you start reading about it, you start browsing about it, and then you start gaining information about it, and you start, so the process is triggered by the intention. But they're saying a great deal of learning is incidental, which is acquired by accident and much of the effort. And we have witnessed this many a times, that many a times we haven't planned to learn about that thing, but we somehow learn about that thing. You may have no intention to look for an information for a particular brand of smartwatch, but because you are in a party and your friends started discussing that particular brand or product in front of you, so by an incident you learn a great deal of information about that particular product. This is the Samsung ads featuring consumer learning about Galaxy Note 3 Plus Gear. It is basically being targeted to the Middle East people, and it is basically a status symbol. And this Galaxy Note 3 has an S Pen, and along with that, there is a gear, which is basically helping more interactivity and convenience for the consumer. And it is basically kind of a new lifestyle, which is more about micromanaging and organizing your life, and uh, endorsing that you're a tech savvy consumer who's living in a new world with its new technologies. Now, let's look into the 4 different elements of learning. And here, the first element of learning is motives. Now, what is motive? If you look at what is motive, it's basically the reason that people they buy different products. So the prime objective of marketers is basically to uncover consumer motives, that why they are buying this particular product or service. For example, there are many people those who want to buy goggles or these shades, but if you ask them why they are buying these goggles or shades, so everybody might come up with very different answer. Somebody may be telling you that they are buying it because they want to look stylish. somebody is buying them to protect their eyes from sunlight, and somebody are buying it because maybe they are blind, or somebody is buying it because maybe they had a surgery last night and doctor has asked them to cover their eyes from dust. So people, they may be buying the same product but with a very different kind of need, a very different kind of motive they have in their mind while they are buying those products. So, and they're saying, who seek to teach consumer how they can fill their needs by buying certain products and brand. So here we need to understand that marketers basically, they teach consumers, because consumers, they already have their needs, they have their innate needs, and they have different kind of needs, and basically the marketers help them to find products which can fulfill their needs. Unfulfilled needs lead to motivation, which spurs learning. So we need to understand that humans, they have innate needs, which are inbuilt needs, and they have other needs as well, social needs, and need for love and belonging. So here, what we need to understand that these needs, when they're unmet, what happens that the humans, they're in state of unequilibrium, and to come back to the state of equilibrium, they have to fill that need. So this unfulfilled need, or the unfilled needs, basically serve as a motivation, as a thirst or a drive, which leads to learning. So if there are people, those who want to reduce weight by cycling, or they want to bicycle for want to buy a bicycle for recreational cycling. So what will happen, because they have this need, it will lead to them to look for the people, those who are either selling for bicycle, or they look for someone who can help them to learn cycling, or it may help them to look for different articles, or it may help them to look for different social uh, communities where they can join, and these platforms where people, they are cycling. So these basically motivation leads to learning. They'll start reading about cycling, they'll start reading about how much calorie they can reduce by cycling for a mile, and so on. Here, what we need to understand that many a times a person may not be interested in cycling or bike riding, so they are not going to search information regarding that. Even if they come across information about it, they'll probably ignore it. So the degree of relevance or involvement determines the consumer level of motivation to search for information about product, service, and potentially engage in learning. So unless and until the product and the service information that they're coming across is not relevant, they're not going to get involved, they're not going to get motivated to learn more about that product or service. So it's basically whatever information they are coming across must be relevant to their needs, to relevant to their unfulfilled needs. Now let's talk about the second element of learning, which is cues. Cues are stimuli that direct motivated behavior. So an exotic advertisement about bike riding may trigger a need for vacation among the people, those who love cycling. So in any ad is a cue or stimulus that suggests a specific way to satisfy a salient motive. So advertisements are basically cues. They serve as a stimulus. They motivate people to, uh, or they suggest them a way to satisfy their need. Now, in marketing, price, styling, packaging, advertising, and store displays are cues designed to persuade consumers to fulfill their needs by buying specific products. So, see, many a times we buy products. Why? Because probably you're walking through a store and you come across a perfume bottle which is very unique, it's in shape and style. And you buy a bottle not because of the fragrance that it is carrying, but you buy because of the packaging, that the bottle that it has. Many times you buy product because they are on discount, they're on sales promotions, that serves as a cue to buy the product. Many a times advertising serves as a reason. You're sitting at home and you come across the Domino's pizza advertisement in which it is very tempting and the steam is like coming out. It is quite hot and the steam is coming out of the product. That tempts you to buy the product and to enjoy the product and to eat the product. and many times the store display, they basically serves as a reason that why we buy those products and services. A particular cushion may be looking so good in the store on that sofa that you buy it, and once you may bring at home, you find it's not looking that good in your living room as it was looking at the store display, because they use all the statics, they create an environment, and that serves as a cue which motivates consumer to buy the product. It convinces consumer, it persuades them to fulfill their needs by buying specific products or services. So, only cues that are consistent with consumer expectations can drive motivation. This is the point which needs a lot of attention by the marketer, because this tells us that marketers should only come up with those cues which can resonate with consumers' expectations, and then only it can drive motivation. Because if marketers need to understand that if consumer is expecting something from the product and that is not being delivered in the queue, for example, if consumers they understand or they have this expectations that the designer clothes are going to be very expensive and they're going to be available at upscale retails, so the designer must make these products available on exclusive stores and not everywhere. So thus marketers must provide cues that match with those expectations. And then finally they say that each aspect of the marketing mix, like the product, price, place, and the promotion, must reinforce the others if cues are to become stimuli that guide consumer actions in the direction the marketers desire. So every aspect, the product, the price, the place, and promotion, everything must reinsure the exclusivity of the designer clothes, they being the upscale product, they being the reflective of high quality, high design element, high aesthetics. So all these things basically they are going to contribute the cues to become stimuli that guide consumers' actions in the direction the marketers desire. So everything that the marketer is building their marketing strategy around must reinforce this. They must serve as a cue, so they guide consumer actions. The third element of learning is response. So, in context of learning, response is an individual's reaction to a drive or a cue. So, whenever consumers get exposed to these stimuli, their reaction or their response to these stimuli may be quite different. So, learning can occur even when responses are not overt. Basically, here what we need to understand that the response is an individual's reaction to a drive or a cue, which means that when a person is exposed to a stimuli, so their reaction is basically an individual reaction, and maybe two people that are sitting in the room and both of them may have a very different reaction towards the same advertisement. One, because they have no need which is resonating with the advertisement, they may totally ignore the advertisement, they may get busy in their cell phone, but the other person who's sitting next to was using cell phone because he is planning to buy this product from a week or so. So if he come across that advertisement, he'll keep his phone side and start watching the advertisement. So learning, the thing can even occur when responses they are not overt, they are not much clear. Still, learning happens. A response is not tied to a need in a one-to-one fashion, and then cues provide some direction, but there are many cues competing for the consumer attention. So here what we need to understand that cues they give direction, but when we are watching television or in the ad slot, we come across many advertisements which are basically competing for the consumer attention, and many a times it's such a clutter. And so here we need to understand that the cues they're competing for the customer attention. There are many advertisements which are cues and they are competing for the consumer attention. And which responses the customer makes depends heavily on previous learning, that in turn depends upon how previous related responses have been reinforced. So what we need to understand that consumers the choices that make the how they respond to the product or to the any cue basically depends upon their previous learning. For example, if somebody has this notion that these junk food they basically is not good for health, and that can cause heart disease. So whenever a person come across any cue regarding these junk foods, he's going to totally avoid them. And so basically, it also depends upon their previous learning, their previous experiences, and many a times it happens that the consumers, they are buying products because they had a very good experience from the product previously, and that good experience, or they have heard a positive word of mouth of the product, that basically reinforces their a response towards the product, cue, whatever cue or stimuli they're coming across. Now, the final is the reinforcement. Reinforcement is the reward. So, it's the pleasure, enjoyment, and the benefits. So, we need to understand that the consumer receives after buying and using a product or service. So, it's basically when consumers, they make decisions about buying the product, and the decision turns out to be a good decision. The product serves as a means of satisfying their need. Consumers, they are satisfied, that basically reinforces their behavior. Now, for the marketers, the challenge is to continue to provide consumers with an ongoing positive products and services, thus reinforcing future purchases. So it's like products and services must live up to the consumer expectation, to the previous experiences with the product, so that the consumer keeps on buying those products again and again. And they say that there is no single universal theory of how people learn. So there are different theories of learning, and people, they learn through different means and different ways they learn things. So broadly, we have two models of learning: the behavioral and the cognitive. And now we'll move forward towards the second learning objective of this chapter, and we are going to understand the behavioral learning, classical conditioning, and the roles of stimulus, generalization, and discrimination in developing and branding new products. We'll look into them one by one. So, if we talk about behavioral learning, it is something which is referred as the stimulus response learning, because when consumers, they're exposed to a stimulus, uh, they observe that, and because they're observing it, it means they're learning it. So it is basically based on a premise that observable response to specific external stimuli signal that learning has taken place. So whenever you're observing any stimuli, then it means that you're learning. And we need to understand that behavior learning is not concerned with the process of learning, but rather with the inputs and outcomes of the learning. That is, in the stimuli that consumers select from the environment, and the observable behavior that results after looking at that stimuli. And basically, there are three forms of behavior learning with great relevance to marketing, and that is classical conditioning, instrumental or operant conditioning, and observational or modeling learning. So we look into them one by one. So when we talk about classical conditioning, it's a very famous experiment that has been taught to, I think, all of us previously. It's basically Evan Pavlov, a Russian physiologist. He did that he experimented with dogs. Genetically, dogs are being considered as someone who are mostly hungry, and they're always looking for food, and they're always ready to eat. In his experiment, Pelvok, he used to ring the bell, and after he used to ring the bell, he used to give meat paste to the dog, and the dog used to salivate. He used to keep that in his mouth, and the dog used to salivate, and he did it for many days. So finally, what happened, that he stopped giving meat to the dog, and whenever he used to ring that bell, the dog used to salivate. So that is like conditioned learning results when a stimulus that is paired with another stimulus that elicits a known response produces the same response when used alone. So here the bell was paired with the meat, and in response the dog used to salivate. So when the meat was missing, still the dog used to salivate. So now let's apply this Pavlov theory to human behavior. So let's consider a situation in which you and your friend, from years, you and your friend sit together and watch a sitcom at 7 p.m. And the sitcom basically starts with the musical theme. And after you and your friend, you got admitted into different colleges and you settle into your hostel, you switch on the TV to watch your favorite sitcom at 7 p.m. And the sitcom starts with the same music that it used to, the musical theme. And you immediately thought about your friend and you felt sad. So, about when you're watching the program. So, this basically feeling of sadness when you think about your best friend whom you are now separated is a natural and human response and is therefore an unconditioned stimuli. Why we are calling it unconditioned stimuli? Because it's a stimulus that occurs naturally in response to a given circumstances. And furthermore, before you started watching the sitcom in your sitcom with your friend every night, you used to hear the same musical theme, but you used to be very neutral and you had no feelings or any response towards that. Musical theme. But now that musical theme is serving as a conditioned stimuli. And why we are calling it a serving as a conditioned stimuli? Because it is a stimuli that became associated with a particular event or feeling as a result of repetition. So finally, let's sum it up that unconditioned stimuli, what is it? It is actually a stimulus that occurs naturally in response to a given circumstances. And then conditioned stimuli, what is it? It is a stimulus that become associated with a particular event or feeling as a result of repetition. And then finally, conditioned response is a response to conditioned stimuli. Now, let's look at this model of classical conditioning. So, unconditioned stimuli was basically meat, and the conditioned stimuli was bell. Whenever the bell was the condition. When bell used to be rang, that was basically a conditioned stimuli, and the meat paste was basically the unconditioned that he used to apply on the dog's mouth. And unconditioned response was salivation, but over the repeated response after repeated pairing, what happened that when they just give conditioned stimuli, the conditioned response basically the salivation that takes place. Let's look at another example. For example, at 6 o'clock news, whenever the news starts appearing on the television, there are dinner aromas coming from the kitchen, which is basically the unconditioned stimuli, and it used to repeat every day. So finally, at that particular time, the unconditioned response was salivation. And after the repeated pairings, what used to happen that even when there was no cooking in the kitchen, there was no dinner aroma, and whenever this 6 o'clock news they started there was a conditioned response that there was a salivation beside there was no dinner being cooked in the kitchen. Now we must understand that the contemporary behavioral scientists they view classical conditioning as learning of associations among events that enable consumers to accept and anticipate events. Rather than being a reflexive action, this is seen as cognitive associative learning. Now, not the acquisition of new reflexes, but the acquisition of new knowledge about the world. From this viewpoint, the consumer is an information seeker who uses logic and perceptual relations among events, along with his or her own preconceptions to form a sophisticated presentation of the world. So, associative learning, in a simple way, we can say is a form of conditioning, a theory that states that behavior can be modified or learned based on stimulus and a response. Much like conditioning, associative memory can be called upon based on the relationship between the two stimuli. So now in this diagram or in this advertisements, we now associate this product with the strength. Gorilla itself is a symbol of strength, and when we talk, we are talking about a glue. So they're saying the toughest glue on the planet. So it means that this glue is as strong as a gorilla. Now let's talk about the strategic application of classical conditioning. There are certain basic concepts that everyone must understand and know. So first of all, let's look into the role of repetition. In advertising, repetition is key to forming associations between brands and fulfillment of their needs. For example, having a healthy mouth and good oral hygiene are human need, and most of the time it is associated with the word crest. Why? Because they get crust advertisements over the repetitive advertising they have ensured, and they have again and again said this, that crest is something which talks about oral hygiene, good oral hygiene, and healthy mouth. So crest is conditioned stimuli, and the consumers' associations are the conditioned response to that. And furthermore, consumers associate crest with scores of version of toothpaste, toothbrushes, teeth whitening stimuli, and the responses are a result of hearing and seeing the crest advertisements again and again. Now, repetition, it increases the strength of association between the two stimuli and slow down forgetting this connection. So it increases the association between the conditioned and the unconditioned stimuli, and it also slows the pace of forgetting. So if any advertisements keep repeating, the consumer won't forget it. And we need to understand that consumers, they have short-lived memories, and advertising wears out. That is a great problem. So repetition help us to overcome these kind of problems. According to classical conditioning theorists, learning actually depends upon not only repetition but also on individual's ability to journalize. So Pavlov found that, for example, the dog could learn to salivate not only to the voice of the bell or the sound of the bell, but can also to the similar sounds such as jungling keys or the coins. So responding the same way to a slightly different kind of stimuli is called as the stimuli generalization. And stimulus generalization explains why some um imitative Me Too products succeed in the marketplace. So we have seen many imitations of the products in the market, and they are very successful because they are imitating. Consumer confuse them with the original product they have seen advertised. It also explains why manufacturers of private label brands try to make their packaging closely resemble that of the national brand leaders. They are hoping that the consumer will confuse their package with the leading brands and buy their product rather than the leading one. And I've seen many examples of this. I still remember there used to be a shampoo named as Medora, and the local when they copied that. They came up with something known as Madonna, and they used to write both of them in the same typefaces. So it was very because the typology was almost similar, so it was very different from the consumers to find the difference between the two. Because the product color was same, the bottle was transparent, the bottle was of the same shape. So there are four strategic applications of stimulus generalization to branding and managing products lines, that is product line extension, product form extension, family branding, and licensing.